Jake Morrison stood in the middle of the alien room with his hands tied behind his back. The walls around him were red and glowing with strange lights that moved like living things. 6 tall creatures stood in a circle around him. They looked like giant insects with hard shells and too many arms. Their faces had parts that clicked and moved when they talked. The leader was huge and stood almost 9 feet tall. His name was Zalthor, and he was looking down at Jake like someone looks at a bug they are about to step on. The room was cold and smelled like metal, and something Jake could not name. His face hurt from where they had hit him earlier. Blood was dried on his lip, but he did not care. His ship was destroyed. His crew was dead. He had watched them die when the alien ships tore holes in the hull. Carrie Hayes had been pulled out into space when the bridge broke open. Peter Grant had burned alive in the engine room. Jake was the only one left, and now he was their prisoner. Zalthor moved closer and bent down so his face was near Jake's face. The alien's breath smelled strange, and his eyes were like mirrors broken into 1,000 pieces. Each piece showed Jake's reflection looking back at him. When Zalthor spoke, his words came out in perfect English because of the metal collar around his neck that changed his language. So this is what humans send to fight us. 1 soldier in a weak ship. Your people must be very desperate or very stupid. The other aliens made sounds that were probably laughing. Jake stayed quiet and looked straight ahead. He had trained for this at the military school on Mars. They had taught him what to do if he got captured. Stay calm, do not show fear. Do not give them what they want. Another alien walked around Jake in a slow circle. Her name was Krisa, and she was second in command. Her eyes looked at him from every angle like she was trying to figure out what he was made of. She spoke in a voice that sounded like metal scraping on metal. Humans have been trouble for us. They do not know when to give up. Maybe if we show them how weak they are, they will finally surrender. Jake kept his mouth shut. The aliens wanted him to beg or cry or show fear. He would not give them that. His jaw was tight and his eyes stayed steady even though every part of his body hurt. They had been asking him questions for hours. Where were the human fleets? What were the defense codes? How many ships did Earth have? Jake had not answered any of it. Zalthor stood up straight and looked down at Jake again. His voice was loud enough to fill the whole room. Your species has been in space for 200 years. That is nothing. The Vraxian Empire has conquered worlds for 10,000 years. We have destroyed civilizations that were stronger than yours. What makes you think you can fight us? Jake finally spoke. His voice was quiet but clear. We are still here, are we not? The guard hit him hard across the face. Pain exploded through his skull and more blood came from his lip. He spit it on the floor and did not make a sound. The aliens clicked their mouth parts together in that laughing sound again. Zalthor started walking back and forth like he was giving a speech to students. You humans are so proud. Your colonies fall one after another. Your ships run away from our fleets. You have not won a single real battle against us. But you keep fighting like you have a chance. It is almost sad to watch. Jake lifted his head and looked right at Zalthor. His blue eyes were cold and steady. You do not understand humans very well, do you? The room got quiet. Zalthor stopped walking and turned to look at Jake. There was something in his voice that sounded like he was trying not to laugh. Explain it to me then, human. Tell me what makes your species so special. We do not know how to quit. More clicking laughter from the aliens. One of them, named Vornak, stepped forward. He had scars all over his shell from many battles. His voice was rough and mean. Every species says that at first. The Thulians thought they were great warriors. We destroyed all their planets in 1 year. The Meridian Collective had technology better than yours. Now they are just a story we tell. What makes humans different? Jake did not answer right away. He was thinking about his crew. About how Carrie had smiled even when the alarms were screaming. About how Peter had kept the engines running until the very end. About all the humans fighting across the colonies who would never give up no matter what. Zalthor kept talking. His voice was smooth and confident like someone who has never lost. We know everything about your military. We have your codes. We know where your ships are. We know your strategies. In 6 months, we will crush your resistance completely. Earth will be ours. Your people will work for us like all the other species we have conquered. Jake looked up at him. Or what? Zalthor's mouth part stopped moving for a second. Or what, human? You are making an offer. There is always an or when someone makes an offer. What do you want from me? The alien leader made a sound that might have been a smile. His voice got quieter and more dangerous. We want information. Tell us where your fleets are. Give us your access codes. Help us and we will give you a good life when Earth falls. You will be comfortable while the other humans serve the Empire. So I betray my own people to save myself. Yes, it is the logical choice for someone who wants to live. Jake was quiet for a long moment. The aliens watched him and waited. They had seen this before with other species. The moment when the prisoner realizes they have lost and decides to cooperate. They expected Jake to break now. Instead, Jake started to laugh. It began as a small sound in his chest. Then it grew louder until it filled the whole room. Jake was laughing like he had just heard the funniest joke in the world. The aliens looked at each other confused. They did not understand what was happening. Zalthor's voice got sharp and angry. You think this is funny? Jake shook his head but kept smiling even with the blood on his face. I think you are funny, all of you. You really believe you have won, do you not? We have one human. Your capture proves it. Kreesa's voice was cold and certain. No. Jake's voice dropped to almost a whisper. He looked at each alien in the room one by one. He let them see something in his eyes that made them take a step back without knowing why. You have made the biggest mistake in your empire's 10,000-year history. Zalthor leaned in close again. Even though he was trying to sound confident, there was something new in his voice. Something that might have been the first tiny seed of doubt. And what mistake is that, human? Jake's smile got wider. His next words were soft, but they seemed to make the air in the room feel heavier and colder. You wanted battle. The room went completely silent after Jake spoke those 3 words. Even the glowing walls seemed to stop moving for a second. Zalthor's mouth parts froze in the middle of a click. Kreesa's antenna things on her head went stiff and straight. All the alien warriors stood perfectly still like someone had pressed pause on a video. Zalthor was the first to move again. He made a sound deep in his throat that the translator collar did not turn into words. Then he spoke and his voice had an edge to it that was not there before. Explain yourself, human. Jake stood up straighter even though his hands were still tied and his whole body hurt. He looked tired and beaten, but there was something in his eyes that did not match his appearance. Something that looked almost like excitement. You have been fighting us for 6 months. Your fleets are bigger than ours 20-1. Your technology is hundreds of years ahead. Your soldiers train for decades while our pilots are barely out of school. And yet what is your casualty ratio, Supreme Commander? Vornak, the scarred warrior, shifted his weight from one set of legs to another. His voice tried to sound certain, but it came out. Defensive, the losses we take are acceptable for a war this size, acceptable, Jake. Repeated the words slowly. Your empire has not had acceptable losses in 3,000 years. Every species you fought either gave up right away or got crushed in weeks. But we are still here, still fighting, and you are losing ships faster than you can build new ones. Kreesa made a hissing sound. Lies. Human. Propaganda, is it? Jake asked. How many of your fighters did you lose taking down my one scout ship? 3, 4. I saw at least 2 burning before my screens went dark. That is 4 Vraxian interceptors with crews trained since birth, destroyed by one human in a ship, held together with spare parts and hope. Zalthor's shell got darker. Jake had learned enough about the aliens to know that meant anger. The Supreme Commander's voice got louder. You are insane, human. The defiant runner was disabled easily. Then why am I alive? The question hung in the air like smoke. Jake pressed forward before any of them could answer. If you are so sure of your victory, why interrogate me at all? Why make offers? Why not just kill me and move to the next target? None of the aliens spoke. They looked at each other with their 1,000-piece mirror eyes, and Jake could see something passing between them. Something that looked like uncertainty. We'll tell you why. Jake's voice got stronger even though he was the prisoner and they were the captors, because somewhere in your war planning, someone noticed a pattern. Humans do not fight like other species. We do not calculate odds before we attack. We do not retreat when logic says we should. We do not surrender when survival requires it. And that terrifies you because you have never met anything like us. Before. Fear. Zalthor said the word like it was. Poison. The Vraxian Empire does not know fear. You should be afraid. Jake said it quietly, but every alien in the room heard it, clearly, because you have awakened something in humanity that you cannot put back to sleep. You wanted to test yourself against a worthy opponent. Congratulations, you found one. But here is what you do not understand about humans. We do not just fight to win, we fight to fight. It is in our blood, put there by a million years of evolution on a planet that tried everything to kill us and failed. Kreesa moved closer. All her sensors were pointed at Jake now. Death World. Your Earth is classified as a standard Class M planet, suitable for life. Standard. Jake actually smiled at that. Have you read the full survey? Earth has weather that destroys cities, ground that moves and breaks continents apart, oceans full of predators that make your war beasts look harmless. And that is before you count the diseases and parasites and the fact that half the plants are poisonous and the other half have thorns. We did not just survive Earth, we conquered it. We turned a planet trying to kill us into our home. Then we left it and went looking for more challenges. Vornak made a dismissive sound. Exaggeration. Is it? Jake challenged. Check your own biology databases. Human strength, human reflexes, human endurance. We are biological anomalies. We can run for days without stopping. We can heal from injuries that would kill most species. We can live in environments from frozen wastelands to burning deserts. And we did all that without technology, using nothing but our bodies and our brains. Zalthor was quiet for a long time. Then he spoke more carefully than before. Even if what you say is true, it changes nothing. We still outnumber you. We still have better technology. Victory is inevitable. You are thinking like a Vraxian, Jake said. That is your first mistake. Let me tell you about a battle from human history. A place called Thermopylae. 300 soldiers held off an army of hundreds of thousands for 3 days. They all died, but they proved something important. That numbers do not matter when you are fighting someone who refuses to lose ancient history. Primitive warfare. Kreesa dismissed it. Okay, more recent then, Jake continued. Britain standing alone against an enemy that controlled all of Europe. Vietnam, where farmers defeated the most powerful military on Earth. Afghanistan, where empires go to die. Again and again, humans have proven that better technology and more soldiers do not guarantee victory. Want to know why? Enlighten us, Zalthor said coldly. Because humans are the galaxy's apex predators, and we have been waiting our entire history for something worthy to fight. You gave us that. You came to our space. You destroyed our colonies. You killed our people, and you expected us to kneel. Instead, we smiled. Because finally we found an enemy that might actually be strong enough to give us a real war. The temperature in the room seemed to drop. The Vraxian officers were not making their clicking laugh sounds anymore. They stood rigid with their eyes locked on the white, human prisoner who spoke not with fear but with something that looked like hunger. You are insane, Vornak said quietly. Your entire species is insane, maybe, Jake agreed, but that is what makes us dangerous. You fight for conquest, for resources, for glory. We fight because we love it, because it is what we do best. Because somewhere deep in our genes there is a switch that flips when someone threatens us, and it does not flip back until the threat is eliminated. Completely. Permanently. Utterly. Zalthor stepped back, and for the first time since Jake had been captured, the Supreme Commander looked unsure of himself. You speak of human determination, as if it can overcome everything. It cannot. Your species will fall like all the others. Will we? Jake asked softly. Tell me, Supreme Commander, how many of your worlds have we attacked? None. You lack the ability. Wrong. Answer, Jake said. We have not attacked your worlds because we are not interested in conquest. We are interested in survival. But if you push us far enough, if you threaten Earth itself, that changes. And trust me when I tell you this. You do not want to see what humans become when we are fighting for our home world. We will burn your empire to ash and dance in the ruins. We will fight with ships and guns, then with knives and clubs, then with our bare hands and teeth, if that is what it takes. And we will smile the entire time. The silence in the chamber was absolute. Every Vraxian stood frozen-faced with a truth they had never considered. That they might have picked a fight with a species fundamentally different from anything they had ever encountered. Before, Jake could see it in how they stood and how they breathed. Doubt. Fear. The realization that this war might not go as planned. You wanted battle, Jake repeated. Well, you got it. And now you are going to learn what it means to fight humanity, not for territory or resources or glory, but for the simple, terrifying reason that we are good at it, we enjoy it, and we never ever stop. Zalthor walked back and forth across the interrogation room. His 6 legs moved in patterns that showed he was agitated and confused. The other Vraxian officers stayed silent and still. Kreesa kept pointing all her sensors at Jake, trying to figure out if he was lying. She found nothing. The human believed every word he said. "You speak boldly for a prisoner," Zalthor finally said after the long silence. "But words are not weapons, are they not?" Jake replied. "Your empire was built on words, threats, demands, ultimatums. You never needed to follow through because everyone surrendered before you had to prove yourselves. But we did not, and now you are in a war you are not prepared for." Vornak moved forward. The scars on his shell caught the light from the glowing walls. His voice was rough and defensive. "The Vraxian Empire has fought countless wars. We have crushed rebellions across 100 star systems. Your assessment is based on ignorance, is it?" Jake challenged. "Then explain the Battle of Proxima Station. Your fleet of 40 capital ships engaged 12 human frigates. You should have swept us aside in minutes. Instead, it took you 8 hours, and you lost 6 capital ships in the process. 6 ships each carrying 1,000 crew members. 6,000. Vraxian warriors dead because a handful of humans refused to follow your script." The Vraxian officers shifted their weight. Jake could see they remembered Proxima Station. It had troubled them. It was supposed to be easy, and it had cost them dearly, or the siege of Europa Colony. Jake continued. "You bombarded that moon for 3 weeks. 3 weeks of constant fire. And when your troops finally landed, they found 37 humans waiting for them. 37 armed with mining equipment and homemade explosives. It took you 2 days to secure a settlement of less than 50 people. 2 days and 200 Vraxian casualties. Guerrilla tactics," Kreesa said, trying to dismiss it. "The desperate actions of a losing side. No." Jake said firmly. "The effective actions of a species that fights smart. You know what we call those 37 colonists back home. Heroes. Their names are taught in every school on Earth. Children grow up wanting to be like them. You think you are breaking our spirit with victories like that? You are creating martyrs. You are giving us reasons to fight harder." Zalthor stopped pacing. He turned to face Jake directly. His voice was controlled, but there was something underneath it now. Something that might have been worry. "What is your point, human? That we should fear you? That we should withdraw from human space and leave you in peace? My point," Jake said, meeting those compound eyes without flinching, "is that you should understand what you are fighting before it is too late. You see us as just another species to be conquered. We see you as the best opponent we have ever had. This is not a war to you. It is an inevitability. To us, it is the defining moment of our civilization. And that difference, that is going to destroy you." Bold words from a man who will not live to see tomorrow. Vornak said coldly. Jake smiled despite the dried blood on his face. "You think killing me changes anything? I am one soldier. Earth has billions. The colonies have millions more. Every human you kill makes the rest of us stronger, more determined, more willing to do whatever it takes to win. You are not fighting an army. You are fighting an idea. The idea that humanity will never kneel." Zalthor's mouth parts clicked rapidly, a sign of deep thought in Vraxian biology. When he spoke again, his voice was more careful. "Your propaganda is effective, I will grant you that. But it does not change the strategic reality. We have the resources, the technology, the numbers. Time is on our side. Time." Jake laughed, but there was no humor in it. "You think time is your ally. Every day this war continues, we learn more about you. We capture your technology and reverse engineer it. We study your tactics and develop counters. We take your advantages and turn them into weaknesses. In 6 months of fighting, we have closed the technology gap by decades. Give us another 6 months and we will be equals. Give us a year, and we will surpass you." "Impossible," Kreesa insisted. "Our technology is the result of millennia of development, and ours is the result of necessity, desperation, and human ingenuity." Jake countered. "You know what humans excel at. Problem solving. Give us an impossible problem and we will figure it out. Your shields were impenetrable. We developed phase variance torpedoes. Your hull plating was impervious to our weapons. We created plasma lances that cut through it like paper. Your faster-than-light drives gave you tactical superiority. We are already testing jump gate technology that will make your drives obsolete. The Vraxian officers exchanged glances. Their intelligence reports had confirmed unusual technological progress from human forces. Advances that should not have been possible given how limited human industry was. You progress quickly for a primitive species, Zalthor admitted, but progress alone does not win wars. No, Jake agreed, but commitment does. Sacrifice does. The willingness to pay any price for victory does. And that is where you are going to lose, because when this war reaches Earth, when your fleets darken our skies, you are going to encounter something you have never seen before. An entire species willing to die to the last person rather than surrender. Suicidal devotion is not a strength. Fornax said. It is when it is backed by competence. Jake replied, we are not throwing our lives away. We are spending them. Every human soldier who dies takes 10 of yours with them. Every ship we lose takes 3 of yours. Every colony you conquer costs you months of occupation and constant casualties from resistance fighters. You are winning battles and losing the war, and you do not even see it. Zalthor moved close to Jake again. The Supreme Commander studied the human with eyes that saw him differently now. Not as a simple prisoner, but as something more complex and dangerous. What would you have us do? Retreat? Abandon our expansion? Accept that a species of primitives has somehow stymied the greatest empire in galactic history? I would have you learn, Jake said quietly. Learn that conquest is not the only path. Learn that some species cannot be broken. Learn that the cost of defeating humanity might be higher than the value of our worlds. But you will not. Your pride will not let you. And that is why, in the end, we are going to win. You speak with certainty of a future you will not see, Zalthor said. Guards return the prisoner to his cell. I grow tired of his delusions. As the guards moved forward to take Jake away, he spoke one last time. His voice rang clear and strong through the chamber. Supreme Commander, I have a message for you. One that you need to deliver to your Emperor, your War Council, whoever makes the final decisions in your empire. Zalthor paused. Speak. Jake looked at each Vraxian officer in turn. Then he spoke words that would echo through the Empire for years to come. Tell them this. Earth is not a target. It is not a prize to be won or a resource to be claimed. Earth is a line in the sand, and if you cross it, if you bring your fleets to our homeworld, you will not just be fighting our military. You will be fighting every human alive. Teachers will fly fighters, scientists will crew battleships, children will load ammunition, and we will not stop. We will not tire. We will not surrender until either we are extinct or you are. That is the message. That is the choice. Choose wisely. The guards pulled Jake toward the exit, but every Vraxian in the chamber felt the weight of his words pressing down on them. As the door sealed behind the prisoner, Zalthor stood motionless, staring at the spot where the human had been standing. He is trying to manipulate us, Kreesa said after a long silence. Classic psychological warfare. Perhaps, Zalthor replied. But what if he is not? What if everything he said is true? Vornak's mouth parts clicked nervously. Supreme Commander, the Empire has never retreated from a conquest. Our reputation is built on inevitable victory. Our reputation, Zalthor said slowly, may be about to encounter something it cannot overcome. Summon the Strategic Council. I need intelligence reports on every engagement with human forces, every casualty, every loss, every unexpected development. If we are truly fighting a species unlike any we have encountered before, we need to understand them, before it is too late. As the officers filed out, Zalthor remained in the chamber alone with his thoughts. For the first time in his long military career, he felt something unfamiliar. Not fear exactly, but uncertainty. The human's confidence had been absolute, unshakable, even facing death. And that confidence, more than any weapon or tactic, troubled the Supreme Commander deeply. In his cell, 3 levels below, Jake sat against the cold wall. His hands were still bound. His face was still bruised and bleeding, but he was smiling, because he had seen it in their eyes, heard it in their voices. Doubt. And doubt was the first crack in the armor of the invincible Vraxian Empire. 3 days passed in the detention level of the Vraxian command ship. Jake's cell was a cube made of energy barriers that he could see through, 10 feet on each side. Through the transparent walls, he could watch the guards changing shifts. He studied them carefully, learning their patterns, their weaknesses, the small gaps in their procedures. They watched him too, like scientists studying a dangerous animal. He watched them back. On the morning of the 4th day, the energy barrier dissolved. Zalthor entered the cell. He was alone this time. No guards, no other officers, no witnesses. The Supreme Commander's shell had gotten darker. There were stress lines visible on its surface that had not been there before. Commander Morrison, Zalthor said, using Jake's rank for the first time. "We need to talk." Jake stood up slowly. His muscles were stiff from being confined. He looked at the alien carefully. No guards. No witnesses. That is either brave or stupid. Perhaps both. Zalthor admitted. "But I require honesty, and that is difficult to obtain in front of subordinates." He gestured to the cell's bench with one of his limbs. "Sit. Please." The courtesy was unexpected. Jake sat down. He watched the alien commander carefully and waited. "What do you want to know?" Zalthor settled onto his lower limbs. It brought him closer to Jake's eye level, a gesture that Jake recognized as significant. The Supreme Commander was making himself vulnerable, making them more equal in this moment. "I have reviewed our intelligence reports, every engagement with human forces, every casualty analysis, every strategic projection." He paused and his voice got quieter. "Your assessment was accurate. We are winning battles but losing the war." Jake said nothing. He just listened and let the silence stretch between them. "Our casualty ratios are unsustainable." Zalthor continued. "Our supply lines are overextended. Our warriors are developing what your species might call battle fatigue. They expect every human fighter to be a threat, every human ship to be dangerous regardless of size or armament. This expectation is degrading combat effectiveness." "You came here to tell me you are losing?" Jake asked carefully. "No. I came to ask you how we can end this war without destroying both our civilizations." Zalthor's compound eyes fixed on Jake. "Because I have run the projections. If we push to Earth, if we commit to total conquest, we will eventually succeed. But the cost will cripple the Empire for generations. We will lose perhaps 40% of our fleet, hundreds of thousands of warriors. And even after we occupy Earth, we will face centuries of resistance, rebellion, and attrition. So do not push to Earth," Jake said simply, "and lose face before the entire galactic community. Admit that the Vraxian Empire was defeated by a species barely 2 centuries into space travel." Zalthor's mouth parts clicked in frustration. "Our reputation is our greatest weapon. If we withdraw now, every species we have conquered will see weakness. Rebellions will erupt across the Empire." "Then you are trapped," Jake said. "You cannot win and you cannot retreat. That is the definition of a losing position, unless there is a third option," Zalthor said quietly. "One that allows both our species to claim victory." "I am listening." The Supreme Commander stood and began pacing in the confined space. His movements were agitated, but also thoughtful. What if the Empire negotiated a treaty? Recognized human sovereignty over your current territory in exchange for trade agreements, technology sharing, and a non-aggression pact. We would frame it not as a defeat, but as the incorporation of humanity into the imperial sphere, as independent allies rather than conquered subjects. Jake considered this carefully. His mind was racing through implications and calculations. This was the moment he had been hoping for, the crack in Vraxian confidence that could become a full break. But it was also incredibly dangerous. One wrong word and the opportunity would vanish. "You are asking me if humanity would accept peace. I am asking if humanity would accept survival," Zalthor corrected. because the alternative is mutual destruction. Perhaps we cannot conquer you without breaking ourselves, but we can certainly ensure that if we fall, we take Earth with us. That is a threat. That is reality. Zalthor said bluntly. I have been authorized by the Imperial Council to offer terms. But I need to know if your leadership would even consider them, or if your species is so committed to this war that negotiation is impossible. Jake was silent for a long time. His mind worked through every angle. This was bigger than him, bigger than this cell or this ship. This was the future of humanity hanging on what he said next. I cannot speak for Earth's government, Jake finally said, but I can tell you what I know about humans. We fight when we are threatened. We fight hard, and we fight dirty, and we do not stop until the threat is eliminated. But we are not suicidal. If you are offering genuine peace, not surrender terms disguised as negotiation, then yes, there are people on Earth who would listen. Genuine peace. Zalthor repeated. Define that in human terms. No occupation, no tribute, no acknowledgement of Vraxian superiority or human submission. Jake said firmly. You recognize our borders, we recognize yours. You do not attack us, we do not attack you. Trade, cultural exchange, maybe even military cooperation against common threats. All of that is possible, but only if you accept that humanity is your equal, not your subject. Zalthor's shell rippled with emotion. His voice was heavy with the weight of what Jake was asking. The Empire has never negotiated with equals. We conquer or we ignore. There is no middle ground in our political philosophy. Then create one, Jake challenged, because your other options are worse. Fight to the bitter end and break your empire, or withdraw and show weakness. At least with peace you can claim you chose to honor humanity's prowess rather than waste resources conquering us. You can spin it as strategic wisdom rather than defeat. The Supreme Commander was silent for several minutes. When he spoke again, his voice carried the weight of a decision that would change the galaxy. If I release you, if I allow you to return to Earth with a message of potential peace, you must understand the risk I am taking. There are factions within the Empire that see any negotiation as betrayal. They would prefer total war to compromise. There are factions on Earth that feel the same way, Jake admitted. People who have lost loved ones to your attacks. Colonies that have been destroyed. Families torn apart. They want revenge, not peace. Then we both face the same challenge, Zalthor observed, convincing our respective peoples that survival with honor is preferable to glorious mutual annihilation. Jake stood up. He met the alien commander eye to eye. Despite their physical differences in this moment, they were equals facing the same impossible task. If you are serious about this, if you are genuinely offering peace, then I will take your message to Earth. I will speak for it, argue for it, do everything I can to make it happen. But you need to understand something. If this is a trick, if you are using peace talks to position for a better attack, humanity will never trust the Vraxian Empire again. The war will continue until one of us is extinct. It is not a trick, Zalthor said with quiet intensity. It is desperation. The Empire stands at a crossroads, and I believe choosing the path of endless war with humanity leads to ruin. But I am only one voice, one commander. I need your voice on Earth to echo mine. How do I know this is authorized? That you are not acting alone? Jake asked. Zalthor produced a small crystal from a compartment in his thorax. It glowed with internal light. This contains the Imperial Council's authorization for negotiation, along with proposed treaty terms. It is encrypted with codes that your intelligence services can verify. It also contains full tactical data on our fleet deployments. A gesture of good faith. Jake took the crystal carefully. It was warm in his hand and lighter than he expected. You are giving us your military secrets. I am giving you proof that I am serious, Zalthor replied. And I am trusting that you are as well. Can you arrange transport back to Earth? My ship is destroyed. My crew is dead, Jake said. Unless you are offering me one of yours. I am offering you mine, Zalthor said. My personal shuttle with a full crew and safe passage through our lines. You will be delivered to the nearest human outpost with the crystal and my personal seal guaranteeing your authenticity. Jake studied the alien commander. He searched for deception and found only weary sincerity. Why me? Why trust a prisoner with something this important? Because you are the one who made me see the truth. Zalthor said simply. You stood in that interrogation chamber beaten and bound, and spoke with such conviction about your species that you planted doubt in my mind. That doubt grew into analysis. Analysis revealed uncomfortable truths, and those truths led to this moment. You started this cascade, Commander Morrison. It is fitting that you complete it. Jake extended his hand. A human gesture of agreement. After a moment, Zalthor gripped it with his primary limb. The contact was brief and awkward between such different species, but it was meaningful. I will do everything I can to sell this piece, Jake promised. But I need one thing from you. Name it. Stop all offensive operations while negotiations are underway. No attacks on human positions, no advances, no limited engagements that are really just land grabs. A genuine ceasefire enforced on both sides. Zalthor's mouth parts clicked in agreement. The Imperial Council has already issued those orders. As of 6 hours ago, all Vraxian forces are in defensive positions only. We are waiting to see if humanity will match our restraint. They will if I have anything to say about it, Jake said. When do we leave, Imedi? The Vraxian shuttle broke through Earth's atmosphere 3 weeks after Jake's capture. The journey had been strange beyond words. Traveling through enemy space in comfort, eating alien food that his stomach barely tolerated, enduring countless hours of briefings from Zalthor's aides about Vraxian culture and politics, and the factions that opposed peace. But now, as the blue marble of his homeworld filled the viewport, Jake felt emotions he had pushed down since his capture flooding back. Home. He was home. The shuttle landed at Pacific Command. The massive military complex sat in what used to be California. Jake stepped onto the concrete in a clean uniform. The data crystal was secure in his pocket. Zalthor's shuttle gleamed behind him in the afternoon sun. A group of senior officers waited for him. At their head was Admiral Frank Cooper, Supreme Commander of Earth's Defense Forces. His face was weathered and lined, but his eyes were sharp. Commander Morrison, Cooper said, "You have caused quite a stir. The Vraxians sent ahead notice that you were coming with a diplomatic message. Care to explain why you are arriving in enemy technology?" Jake saluted crisply. His body moved on automatic after years of training. "It is a long story, sir. One that needs to be told in a secure location with the full Joint Chiefs present. Already arranged," Cooper said. "Your shuttle crew will be treated as diplomatic envoys per the laws of war. They have agreed to remain on their ship until negotiations are complete." 4 hours later, Jake stood in the war room deep beneath Pacific Command. He faced the Joint Chiefs of Staff. The President was there too on a secure video link. Representatives from every major Earth nation filled the room. The data crystal's contents were displayed on massive screens around the room. Fleet positions, casualty reports, proposed treaty terms, the encrypted authorization from the Vraxian Imperial Council, all of it laid bare for Earth's leadership to see. "Let me understand this clearly," President Linda Wallace said from her screen. Her voice was calm, but there was steel underneath it. "The Vraxians, who have been systematically attacking our colonies for 6 months, who have killed thousands of our people, are now offering peace." "Not just peace, Madam President," Jake replied, "a genuine treaty recognizing human sovereignty and offering alliance terms. They want to end the war because they have realized they cannot win it at an acceptable cost." General Marcus Stone leaned forward. He was head of strategic forces and his face was skeptical. "And we are supposed to believe this, that the empire that has conquered half the galaxy is suddenly willing to negotiate with us." "Believe it or not, sir, but the data does not lie," Jake said. Gesturing to the screens, "They have given us complete intelligence on their fleet deployments. That information alone could change the course of the war if we wanted to press our advantage. But they are betting we are smart enough to recognize a good deal when we see one." "A good deal," Admiral Cooper said skeptically. "They invaded our space, and we have made them pay for every light." "Here," Jake countered. "The casualty ratios, the resource drain, the damage to their reputation. It is all there in the data. We have not won this war, but we have not lost it either. And that is an outcome almost no other species has achieved against the Vraxians. They are offering us recognition as equals, not demanding our surrender. That is unprecedented." President Wallace spoke again. Her eyes were studying Jake through the screen. "Commander Morrison, you were their prisoner. You saw their capabilities firsthand. In your professional opinion, are they offering peace because they are weak or because they are strategic?" Jake considered the question carefully. He knew his answer would carry weight. "Both, Madam President. They are weak enough that continuing the war would damage them severely, but they are strategic enough to recognize that reality and adapt to it. The Supreme Commander I spoke with was no fool. He understood that pride was not worth the destruction of his empire." "And what about our pride?" General Helen Porter asked. She was head of colonial defense and her voice was hard. "What about the colonies they destroyed? The families they killed? Do we just forgive all that in the name of expedience?" "No, ma'am," Jake said firmly. "We do not forgive it, but we can choose to end it. Every day this war continues, more people die on both sides. If we can secure peace with honor, if we can protect Earth and our remaining colonies while establishing ourselves as a power the galaxy has to, respect, is that not worth more than revenge?" The room erupted in heated discussion. Some argued for continuing the war, pressing the advantage now that they understood Vraxian weaknesses. Others advocated for peace, citing the horrific costs of further conflict. Jake watched and listened. He understood that the fate of humanity hung on this debate, on whether they could set aside their anger and their pain long enough to see the opportunity in front of them. President Wallace called for order. Her voice cut through the noise like a knife. "Commander Morrison, what exactly do the Vraxians want in exchange for peace?" Jake pulled up the treaty terms on the main screen. He had studied them during the journey home. He knew every clause and condition. Recognition of their sovereignty over territories they held before the war. Trade agreements that benefit both sides. We get access to their technology. They get access to our resources. A mutual defense pact against external threats. And cultural exchange programs to build understanding between our species. That is it. General Stone asked suspiciously. "No tribute." "No acknowledgement of submission, that is it, sir," Jake confirmed. "They want to save face by framing this as bringing humanity into the imperial sphere as valued allies rather than conquered subjects. We get genuine independence and they get to claim strategic wisdom rather than defeat." Admiral Cooper stood. He paced the length of the war room. His boots echoed on the metal floor. "You realize what accepting these terms means, do you not? We are legitimizing their empire. We are saying it is acceptable that they conquered other species as long as they leave us alone." "With respect, sir, that is above my pay grade," Jake said. "I am a military officer, not a diplomat. But I will say this. We cannot save the galaxy. We can barely save ourselves. If the Vraxians are offering us survival with honor, and if the alternative is mutual destruction, then I know which choice serves humanity better." The debate continued for 6 more hours. Coffee was consumed by the gallon. Voices were raised and tempers flared. Arguments were made and countered and made again. But gradually, through the exhaustion and the emotion, a consensus emerged. Earth was tired. The colonies were exhausted. The military was stretched beyond its limits. And the data crystal had proven that the Vraxians were genuinely seeking peace, not setting a trap. As the sun set over the Pacific president, Wallace spoke the words that would change human history. "We will accept the Vraxian peace terms, conditional, of course, on verification of their good faith and establishment of proper diplomatic channels. But yes, we will end this war." Jake felt something release in his chest, a tension he had carried since his capture finally easing. He had done it. Against all odds, he had brought peace. "Thank you, Madam President." "Do not thank me yet, Commander," Wallace said with a slight smile. "You are going to be our liaison to the Vraxian delegation. You started this peace process, you get to help finish it." 3 months later, the Treaty of Proxima was signed aboard a neutral station in deep space. Jake stood behind the human delegation. He watched as President Wallace and Supreme Commander Zalthor formally ended the war. The ceremony was broadcast across both civilizations, watched by billions of humans and trillions of Vraxians. It was historic. It was unprecedented. It was the moment when 2 species that had seemed destined to destroy each other chose a different path when it was over, when the documents were sealed and the delegations began to mingle. Awkwardly, Zalthor approached Jake directly. The alien commander moved through the crowd with purpose until he stood before the human who had changed everything. Commander. Morrison Zalthor said through his translator. I understand you are being promoted for your service. Captain Morrison now, sir. Jake confirmed, with a slight smile. And you? How did the Imperial Council react to your diplomatic success? With relief and criticism in equal measure, Zalthor admitted. Some call me a visionary. Others say I am the commander who admitted defeat. But I sleep better knowing I chose preservation over pride. Jake extended his hand. Zalthor gripped it without hesitation now. The gesture was more natural between them after months of working together. You made the hard choice. That takes courage, as did you, Zalthor replied. You could have urged your people to fight to the end. Many in your position would have, maybe, Jake said. But I learned something during this war. Humans are great at fighting, but we can be great at other things too. Building, creating, exploring. All the things we could not do while we were busy trying not to get extinct. Peace gives us that opportunity. And what will you do with peace, Captain Morrison? Zalthor asked. Jake looked out the station windows at the stars beyond. They stretched away in every direction, infinite and inviting. Explore. There is a whole galaxy out there we have not seen yet. And now that we are not fighting the Empire, we can go see it. The Empire might join you in that exploration, Zalthor said. There are many unknown regions even we have not charted. Perhaps human boldness and Vraxian experience could complement each other. Joint exploration missions. Jake smiled at the thought. That would certainly give the diplomatic